being the first one to mention to you about the Acro, but you was the very first one out of the whole of the YouTube community, right, to drop it on Dicky's toes.
Well, actually, let me speak about that, Steve. Right. So,
but what I don't get, there's so much information out there about him at the moment, right? And what with this Acro now in play, I've seen many men drop at the first hurdle, but this cunt keeps coming back and back and back. And
well,
I just don't get
you
how
know better than me.
How he hasn't been ended yet, I don't know, with all the information that's out there.
You know better than me, Steve, right? The levels of manipulation that goes on in that situation. Me and you met through Dicky. We know what he's like. Now, are we a fucking sort of a part of a trolling campaign? No, I hope the motherfucker's innocent. I said that from the beginning. I hope this guy's innocent, because if he's innocent, then there's no victims. But the reality of it is, right, and I have to say this because I speak to a lot of people on that side of YouTube, and you know that. But for instance, if you're going to release a subject access request that you've obtained by illegal means, and it's key that people don't understand that, and there's a lot, actually, I'll touch on that first. So there's a difference between fraudulently making a subject access request to sort of to lie about somebody, or obtaining a real subject access request by illegal means. And I think this subject access request was obtained via a phone that Dicky had, that had his email in it. And once they had his email, they were able to apply for a subject access request via that email and other types of identification that only one person could have, Dodgy Dave. Now, the reason why people don't believe Dodgy Dave is because that motherfucker has been done for fraud. There's news articles about this guy. Now, I'm not getting it, Dave. We've all done bad things in our past, and I'm sure he's not that cat anymore.
But would it make a difference if say, for argument's sake, Mr. Humble was the first one to put it out? Now, he's got credibility behind him. Now, would it make a difference to the stage that we're at now for getting rid of Dicky if Humble had produced it and backed it rather than...
I disagree, Steve. I disagree. Even though me and Humble have a good dialogue, I will always be honest to people. Even when I was sort of friendly with Dicky and I didn't know all the ins and outs of the situation, I was always honest with him, and I would be honest with Humble as a person that I speak to, as a person that I respect. I would say to him, under no circumstances do any of you guys release that, because if you do, you are considered by the opposition as trolls. So if you do that, then it's only going to seem like fraudulent paperwork.
So what would have made it better for people to understand and believe then? How would you think the best way to produce that Acro, so there's no doubt in anyone's mind that it's real?
Well, obviously you can't get the statistics of it, of how many people that because I do believe that's a real subject access request, right? People are going on about others' mistakes in it. I've done Nick Williams' subject access request, and there's mistakes left, right, and center. And the reason being, you don't use the subject access request. It's for your own personal use. You don't use it for like any. I don't think you use it for the court proceedings or anything. If there is like, oh, what's that? Is there a wee noise there? Can you hear that? Can you hear that noise?
I could hear a bit of an echo, but
it was like, hold on, just let me fix that.
I'm not sure if it's my end or whether it's the...
Yeah, StreamYard's messing up at the minute, mate. It's terrible. There's like a ticking noise in mine. Hopefully it's not recording. But as I was saying, like, if, there's millions of mistakes through them. So I do believe if somebody put a gun to my head and says, is that subject access request real? I would say yes, because, it is. They do get mistakes in it. Now, if you're going to court, that's all written up new for the court, and there is no mistakes in it. See, people don't understand the difference, but I believe the best way to have done that would have been to source somebody completely unbiased that doesn't give a shit about the situation and is maybe just looking for the views, to host that subject access request and say, look, and actually have their reputation put on the line, and them do their due diligence into the subject access request, and then once done, then release it. Because what you're saying is you're seeing the hard work of Humble and the hard work of Dodgy Dave being totally eradicated by the fact that one, Humble's considered a troll, even though that I know he's not a troll, because the man actively told people not to troll me, right? So I can categorically say this man actually, if anything, sort of helped me a little bit in regards to not getting people to not to troll me throughout that whole Dicky situation. And then you have Dodgy Dave, and I'm just going to call a spade here, who has been done for fraud. So naturally people are going to go, if this guy is, was considered one of the biggest fraudsters in Liverpool at the time, obviously they're not going to believe that it's real. But the reason why it is real is because it's hard to fraudulently make a subject access request. But how Dave has done this is he's accessed the Acro company via illegal means. That's what he's good at. It's not that he's made one up. That's super hard to do. There was like, how many pages? There was what, 55 pages or some mad shit.
Yeah.
So there's no way you're going to make 55 pages of that up. You know what I mean? So
see, the main thing for me,
get what I'm saying.
I mean, there's a main common denominator in all of this. I mean, ever since the day of me getting involved to the day of me jumping out and realising exactly what Dicky is and what he's got as his background.
Yeah.
And the worrying thing for me thinking now, a year on from being involved to getting the fuck away from him, the worrying matter about it is getting the word out there, because he's got so many people surrounding him. Like you said, he's soon going to be on 10,000 fucking subs, right? Now, when are these people going to wake up and realise that they're supporting a person who's dangerous?
Look,
now I understand now. A year on, the work that Humble's done, what Dodgy's doing, and Karma, and just to name a few. But there's loads of people, that are trying to get the word out there that this guy is manipulative and he is dangerous. Now, that's the worrying thought for me, because if you got a supporting circle of 10k people believing in you, right, and then they want to turn their back away from all the evidence that's out there, to plainly see what this character is.
But we done that, Steve.
I mean, that's worrying.
We done that.
How are these people going to get the word out there,
but
positively, perfectly, so everybody knows exactly what he's done?
But the only way, unfortunately, and this is the cold, hard reality, right? And there's no other way to say this, and I wish it wasn't this way, but it's going to take Dicky to do something else that's undeniably right in front of your face, because what you're dealing with here is right. And there was somebody came to me the other day, or the other week, sorry, and they said to me, look, we don't live in an era anymore that Jimmy Saviles can get away with shit. And I said, that's not true. And this guy didn't know that I was on YouTube. And I says, I filled him in the whole Dicky situation that I was involved with on YouTube. And he says, wow. And I goes, is the channel took down? And he said, and I says to him, no, it's not took down. Actually, he's still got that channel, and he's got another channel, and it's built to near 10,000 subscribers. And he says, wow, are you sure this guy isn't innocent? And I goes, man, I'm telling you now, right? The amount of things that have come out with this guy, and I filled them in with the whole subject access request, what I went through, what Dodgy Dave released. And he, as a normal person, says, well, you have to watch out that wasn't fraudulently made. So because there's average people starting these new YouTube accounts, and they're coming on and they're seeing this sort of big bare knuckle boxer that's jacked and he's a good looking character, they're thinking to themselves, there's no way. And then they're looking at the opposing side. And without sounding bad, I have to call a spade here. They're looking at people like me that aren't jacked, that maybe aren't as good looking as Dicky, that, the Dodgy Daves. I don't want to say that about Humble, but you know what I mean? That type of content coming from the opposing side. And they're seeing them all beefing with each other. Like you have the cesspit, you have Apollo now, you have all these other ones, and they're all beefing, calling each other bacons. And then on the other side, you have Dicky sitting there in a bed, nice as pie, like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, talking about mental health. To the average person coming into YouTube, not knowing about the situation, they're looking at that and they're going, well, there's clearly Dicky is 100% innocent. But What they're not realizing is, and what this guy that I was speaking to isn't realizing is that this is how Jimmy Savile got away with shit, because he sort of put himself out to the public to gain support from the public and done lots of things for people, for mental health, for schools, for all these things. And what it was, all that was to sort of gain power so he could fill that dirty, evil sexual desire that he had, that needed filled, and that's all that was for. So, you know, and another thing I have to say, a lot of misinformation about Dicky too didn't help. A lot of people came out and said stuff about Dicky like that was just untrue, just because they wanted him took off YouTube or Facebook. And because that misinformation has proven to be misinformation, then any information that those people come out with in the future that is
See,
true
see,
is
see,
just
that's
considered
see,
false.
that's given the space for these supporters of his, to be able to say that, and
Yeah.
say, oh yeah, that's not true. He ain't done this. He ain't like that. So through trying to sink him fully by using a few added extras, to make it look worse, hasn't really helped, because that's given leeway for his supporters to be able to stand up and say, oh, look at them, they're bullshitting about him, they're lying about this. But he is a convicted sexual predator. It's on his record.
Well, look, we can
And
actually.
and, and, the,
We
and
can,
the other thing I find more ironic, and I think it's more to the point of seriousness now. Um, I don't know why anybody would ever put a video on YouTube saying, "Oh, they're ready for a relationship with a woman, and I'm looking for a girlfriend." That
wow.
ain't for YouTube. That ain't YouTube stuff, mate. That's
That's
personal stuff.
red flag material, Steve. Can I talk? Can I just answer that 2 minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I have a friend, right? And I'm not going to say whether he's on YouTube or in real life because I don't want to bring any heat or attention to this innocent man, right? This guy is innocent. And this guy got accused of some shit by a woman that accused multiple people. And we didn't know this. He didn't know this, right? And anyway, it was one accusation of something, and it absolutely ruined him. Now that was 10. That was about 10 to 15 years ago. This guy, right? Now I didn't trust him whenever it came out. I didn't want to be around him just in case it was true, because you don't know who
Yeah.
people are. Personally, myself as a guy, I've never found myself in that situation. I've always been very cautious about women, very, very cautious from a young age. My granda was always like pumping it into me, saying, when it comes to women, mate, you have to be very careful because anything can ruin your life. And I was like, right, okay. And I sort of trusted him on that. But this guy has never been in a relationship since. And speaking to this guy, he says, I never want to be in a relationship. And I don't even think he's been with a woman in 15 years. He just doesn't want to go near them. He doesn't have any them social media apps, the sort of those hookup apps. And I think he's been on a few dates, but it takes him a long while to build up the trust because that thing happened to him. Now,
I mean, if that's happened to you, then you're going to be
now,
thinking exactly the same, aren't you? Because
Dicky, hypothetically speaking, just say he's totally 100% innocent, right? So if he's 100% innocent in this, and this is a trolling campaign, and all these allegations and accusations, by the way, which he's admitted to, that he's got allegations of a sexual nature. He's got two grape allegations, right? He's admitted to that. He said that through. I watched back on my podcast that done with me. Actually admitted that. Go on my channel. I actually posted a clip of it, right? So if if he's admitted to that, and he knows that that's what women can do to him, and it's not real, right? Then why would he pursue a relationship on YouTube for women to come to him from YouTube? Because they
exactly,
could,
or any social media. Come to think about that,
well,
I mean, I wouldn't physically go on Facebook to look for a relationship. I wouldn't go on Snapchat looking for a relationship. I wouldn't go on Twitter looking for a relationship. I wouldn't go on YouTube looking for a relationship, because if you're in that predicament, right, where you've got a bad background, you know, and you are known as a sexual predator. Now, to me, there's only two possibilities.
so basically,
Um,
you basically for him, hypothetically speaking, if this is a trolling campaign and none of this is true and the subject access request has been fabricated and all these allegations that he's admitted to are totally 100% false and not true, the only way that man, personally myself, right, if that was me, I wouldn't be, I would be going on, if just say I was meeting people through apps or whatnot, right, I would be going on with a completely different face, a completely different name. I had been meeting a woman, and then after about a few conversations of no sexual talk, I would be saying, look, this is who I really am. I've been through this trolling campaign, and uh, the reason why I have to be so cautious is because
Yeah, but why? Yeah,
I
but why
need
would
to,
you
I need to
advertise?
make sure that you're not going to absolutely fuck me on this here.
But why would you go on YouTube to make a video promoting the fact that you're looking for a woman?
I can tell you why. I can tell you.
That's not natural, is it? I mean,
No,
I wouldn't
I can.
personally put my personal life on YouTube.
I can
I
tell
do
you
these
100%
videos.
why he's doing it. I know why he's doing it, right? Because now
Is he
I'm
doing
aware.
it? Is he doing it because this is the danger that he's he is?
This is
And
why.
by him putting it out on the video, he knows he's got hundreds of people that watch it. Well, doesn't that make him more dangerous than like your average predator?
Well, this is why he's done it, is because he now has 10,000 subscriptions of new subscriptions of people who don't have a clue about his past. Because if you look through his comment section, you can see that nobody really even talks about the trolls. They're all just talking about his channel and stuff. So he knows if he puts out that video asking for a woman, there's a good chance that a woman's going to come to him via Instagram or whatever, and they're going to contact him knowing fuck all about what's went on. And just I have to say it, hypothetically speaking, because this is all hypothetical and all alleged and all the rest, then hypothetically speaking, if you have that predator's mindset, right, then that means it's fresh prey. You're on new hunting grounds. And for a predator, that's fucking, that's like putting a cheetah in a or a lion in a fucking pig pen. Do you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
picking
yeah.
them one off one by one. So it's really dangerous territory. And what I don't want is, right, I would rather have get this wrong and for this all to be a trolling campaign, for all these allegations and all these things to be true. And then in 15 years' time, look back and see that there's been a fucking lineage of chaos that this man's caused in regards to women and God knows whatnot.
See, I think when when he actually eventually does end up in court, and charged with this behaviour, I think deep down there should be stipulations put. Say for argument's sake, he does go out and do it again. It's inevitable, because that's how predators work, right? Now, if he
Mm,
goes out and he commits another offence, right, and he gets charged with it, and let's just say hypothetically he goes to jail, he gets 3 years. Now, when he comes out, I know that people of that caliber, they sign on the sexual offenders register for life. Stipulations should be put where they're banned from having internet from in their whole house. Now, how if that would work or how that would work, I don't know.
wow.
But if they're actually seeking this online, then that's where the authorities should be looking to stop internet services being able to reach to his house for him to be able to commit these offences online. That's what I think. Little stipulations like that will count for a lot because he will then know if he came out of jail, if he so much as picked up a phone, tablet, TV, any device accessible through the internet, he can go then liable straight back to jail, no questions asked. Now, I've thought about this before in the past, and these little stipulations will stop them, um, in one sense, from accessing the internet to have access to be able to carry on their predator um, progress online. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts and ideas are on sentencing guidelines and stuff, but
Well,
these little things that could be
I think it has to be individual to each person because, for instance, if you have a guy, right, or a girl that's been accused once or convicted once, Yeah, you have to go, but it has to be how were they convicted? Did they pick them up in a bar? Were they doing this on the street? Then there has to be bans on you're not allowed any near any premises that sells alcohol, or
So with Dicky, it all seems to be from online.
well, just that's what I'm trying to say. But with him, it would be online, no access to internet. Anybody that does it via internet, because we're not just solely talking about Dickie here. We're talking about everybody. Because listen, here's another thing I'm going to have to say to you, right? How do you feel, right? Actually, here's a question I have to ask you, Steve, right? What changed your mind on the whole thing?
I think it was the more bits of evidence that was coming out. Some of it I'll say, nah, it's just a major drug campaign against him. These people just got it in for him because he's been successful. But the one piece, I mean, it was maybe one or two pieces of evidence that actually changed my mind fully. And that was when I seen the video of the conversation he had on the phone to his mum.
I remember you telling me, and you
You
came to
know,
me, and people don't need
now,
to.
now,
People
I sat back and
remember
I
that.
thought, if he was like some people have said in the past, he was trying to put words in his mum's mouth by the way that he was asking her questions on that phone call. Now, looking at it from the mother's point of view and the answers that she was giving, she knew how many times that he had been put on the spot by the police to being interviewed over certain allegations. Right now, I think it must have been numerous allegations that he's been pulled in for. Um, because his mum actually turned around and said, "Well, one more, and you're going to look like a sex offender." Or don't quote me on that, but it was close to them words what his mum said. It's going to make me look like a sex offender. I think you have to look back on the video, but for a mother to say that, now that tells me that she could see where it was all going, so she positively knew the allegations each and every time he got pulled in for them. Now
Yeah,
that's now
yeah.
that's what that's what put me then at because I was 100% defending that guy, and for me to go from the 100% to 20% over that phone call alone, that was when my mind was telling me, hold on a minute, this ain't a trolling campaign, and then other bits of evidence were coming out, and then I think I had a conversation with yourself at one point, and I was probably speaking on the lines of, there's something not right here.
People came to me about you, Steve, right? And they were saying Steve's trolling. He's got accounts working for Dicky. He's doing this here. He's doing that there. And I was like, right, okay, right. And I was listening to a certain degree, but then I would speak to you, right? And I'd be like, and then you would come to me. So I would never come to you and say, well, mate, what do you think about this? You would ring me up whenever we were both speaking to Dicky at the time, and you were like, what do you think about this? And I never even heard about it. And I was like, what is it? Like, go check out this. And you would send me a link and I would look at it. And this is whenever you were speaking to Dickie at the time.
Mm.
And then I would listen. And I remember the exact moment you came to me and says, what do you think about the phone call between him and his mum? And I listened to it and I went, wow, that is actually quite a big one there, because you've got his mum speaking here. And I remember speaking to him at the time. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like he said something along the lines with, it's doctored. It's all those phone calls are doctored. And I was like, right. So whenever you're in that mind frame, right, and you're sucked into that bubble, you don't actually realize what's going on until you're outside the bubble. And you realize that there's about 30 accounts trying to take this guy down, and some of them are really good, and some of them are actually trolls. Now, this is why I clung on to the fact that this guy could have been innocent for 2 months. It was for 2 months I thought this guy was innocent, right? Was
Mm.
that there was actual trolls connected to this whole thing, like real trolls, and
Yeah, but the thing was, I mean,
they didn't help the situation.
where everybody was saying he was getting trolled. I mean, I now being a year on, I've had time to get on with my family life, and you know, um, now they weren't actually trolls in my book. The way that I
Some
look
of
at
them
it,
were.
the
Some
way
of
I
them
look
were.
at it right now, they're not trolls because
I know of one troll. He's off YouTube now, and I know that he was trolling because me and him uh, got in contact with each other at the start of the when he had a podcast. He was supposed to be. I'm not going to say the name. He was supposed to be interviewing Darren G, and he didn't, and then he got fucked off with Darren G. And I know that he was running 3 or 4 accounts, and he was trolling everybody. And I remember his accounts coming onto my channel and other people's channels,
yeah. But the thing is,
trolling
I mean,
people.
the way I look at that now, I don't look at it as trolling because they were trying to inform us. Now that was their way of
Yeah, no,
trying to
no,
get,
that's humble.
that
You're
was their
talking
way
about
of trying to
humble.
get through to us to
You're
show us
talking
that.
about humble, and you're talking about bell ringer, and you're talking about karma corner. No, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about those actual trolls. Even to this day, come onto my channel and troll me for that situation and troll other people. That see, this is what people don't understand. There
So
is
maybe what they
actually
were trying to do, they were just trying to get the truth to you. I think.
no, no, no. They still come to this day, and they don't care that this is the thing. These trolls don't care that Dicky could be a sexual predator. They probably want him to be a sexual predator because then it's lots of sort of trolling and content for them to sort of troll people over. But there's there's legitimate people like Humble, Bellringer, Karma, many others. Forgive me if I missed you. That actually that actually want to get to the then people want to get to the bottom of it, but then there's actual people who just wanted to sort of cause carnage on content creators' lives. And that's what I think has hurt the whole situation. I remember seeing one comment, I'm not going to name the name by off the person because I couldn't be bothered getting into a back and forth. And 1 minute Dicky had 15 allegations, and the next minute he had 4 allegations, and the next minute he had 10 allegations. And these guys couldn't get their own numbers right. And
See
they
that
were
that's the
doing so
damaging
much
factor.
damage to the whole cause.
That's the damaging factor that I couldn't see at the time of me sticking up for Dicky. Now, when you get told a story like today from one person, right, that sent me email after email, and they were telling me it was 4 possible victims, and then the next day I got an email off somebody else saying it was 7, and then the next day afterwards I had emails off another third individual that was telling me it was like 12. Now, when I was sticking up for him and I got emails sent to me like that, now at that point I hadn't seen or heard the phone call between him and his mum. When I realised that was October. So in September I received the 3 emails from 3 separate individuals. One was telling me there was 4 allegations, one was telling me there was 7, and one was telling me there was 12. Now, at that moment, looking back, I had no choice but to call them a liar because you can't have 4, 7, then 12. So, looking at it now, I think what the truth maybe was the one in the middle, um, where they said 7. Four was maybe what people had officially put out, say for argument's sake. Now the 7 is what's come to light. The 12 was over exaggerated, so I changed my mind and think twice about defending him. So they exaggerated the point where I was then at that moment in September. I thought, this is all bollocks, man. Now, the ones that was actually trolling me and caused me my misery, with all my friends in Telford and, going through my Facebook and causing lots of trouble between me and Craig, one of my old work colleagues. At that moment back then, I looked at them as trolls. because of the stuff that was getting sent through to me, and it couldn't be 4, 7, and 12. It's got to be one of them to be the truth. And the main reason why they started diving into my background and getting my family members involved and getting my mates and that involved is because I wasn't seeing sense. That's how I look at it now. Back then,
you were heavily. Can I say this, Steve? I just need to say this. You were heavily deep into that shit with Dicky. But I can categorically say this now, right? The reason why some people latch on to one side, and I've adopted the opposite technique, is when somebody comes to me and says, I believe Dicky, right? I have people in real life come to me and say, Ron, I know the whole situation. I think it's a trolling campaign. I go, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. Do you want to believe that? That's 100% fine. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but always know that you could be 100% wrong, and there's a good chance you could be 100% wrong. So, pardon me, I could, instead of being angry with people and saying this and saying that and making videos and screaming at people, I just go, believe whatever you want to believe, because I can't change your mind what the truth is, because you have to be a big believer in the truth, because I believe one of these days, even though that there's an abundance of evidence in regards to Dicky that's out there, the subject access request that's been obtained by illegal means and pumped onto the internet, the phone call recordings, the people themselves coming onto the screen. It doesn't matter about that. One of these days, the truth will be fully out, and there'll be undeniable whether he is 100% innocent, whether he's a little bit innocent, or he's 100% guilty, or just a little bit guilty.
Would I believe all the truth is out there now for all to see?
I don't. I think there's a lot
more. I believe all the truth is out there.
See, I don't, Steve.
You just got to pick in your mind and your soul. What is the truth in your body, in your mind, in your soul, and you'll realize there's more than enough out there. I mean, but like I said, for me, what made me major change my mind, and
I've personally heard stories from people.
Was a damning piece of evidence.
Yeah, but Steve, I have to say this, and I can't take this as factual information. I don't know if it's true or not, and I will never be coming out with any news stories or anything, but I have spoke to people from the area that aren't on YouTube, that want nothing to do with Humble, Dodgy Dave, Dicky, or anybody, any of the situation. They have spoke to me and they said, Ronan, there's been, and we don't want you to come public with us. We're just telling you this is what we know. We know of multiple situations where multiple people were hurt in regards to a certain individual. I'm not going to even say his alias name that we use, but this is what I'm saying. I don't even believe, I think personally myself, if you don't want to get too conspiratorial, like, I have to just say this, guys, right? Take away all the fucking allegations and stuff. I had a guy come to me, right? And he's sort of like he was sort of an ex-criminal from Ireland. And he goes, look, mate, I'm going to tell you one thing, right? I watched the whole subject access request reveal. I seen his charge sheet. I seen his police certificate. I seen everything, right? He says, I'm going to tell you 100% now. See, if somebody come up to me with a charge sheet and a police certificate and a subject access request like that, the first thing I'd be thinking about is, I wouldn't be looking at the sexual allegations. I was thinking, you are a supergrass to the police, because there's no way. Look at the amount of stuff, regardless of the allegations. Look at the stuff that he keeps getting away with. He keeps getting away with, and you're thinking to yourself,
corruption within the police force.
Not corruption within the police force. Well,
if you're going to go to one sergeant, say, if your dad is best friends with a chief inspector, now it's been proved time and time again, police corruption. I mean, now if a police force in Telford could hide evidence and the rest from making a conviction to these grooming gang members through police corruption,
yeah,
that's a whole gang. Now we're talking about one individual. So if they could hide the information about a gang, then surely they're going to be able to hide the information.
That asset, they see that person as an asset, and the only reason you're an asset to the cops is if you're giving the cops information. And the only information I think that man could provide is whatever is going on in the area. So he must, in my opinion, for him to get away with so much, it to me is like if I done one of them things, like, and we're not to mention this man has a racist allegation on his record too for calling somebody, you know, off, from that. I don't even know how to say it. They're calling a person a derogatory term in regards, is it derogatory? Is that the right word to use? But a term, a racist remark to somebody. So you're dealing with a person here. Is it just bad luck? I don't believe it, and I've heard, and I do believe that this could possibly be the tip of the iceberg, the tip of. And there's all. Listen, we're going to move into the podcast now anyway, and we'll move away from this here because I want to actually talk about something. We know, as you say, we know about Dicky now. We know, me and you know what the crack is, and at the end of the day, fuck it. What can we do? Do you know what I mean? It's out there, and I have to say this, Steve. Right?
See, the only scary part, just to finish on that one,
Yeah. Go ahead.
is like I say, I mean, us YouTubers, it's spread all over YouTube with facts
Yeah.
about the person. So the whole of the YouTube community knows what he's done and what his past is. Now the scary thing is, if you're not on YouTube and you're a street person, you're not getting to see all of this, are you?
No.
His background. Now that's a scary point because anyone who opens up their YouTube channel, it's going to come up with a video about this and about the person, right? Because it's all over YouTube. Now, how do they get the word other than on YouTube? Because the internet would only run so far. When they walk the street life and YouTube life are two completely different things.
100%.
I know what's on YouTube, and when I walk on the street, a person off the street that don't use YouTube, they're not going to hear about it. So they can be easily dragged in to a dangerous situation with him, especially a female that don't use YouTube to hear about what's all going on. Now, how to get that part across to somebody that is not on YouTube on the street to keep them safe?
But that's what I'm saying, Steve. What's going to happen is, right, is something's going to happen, right, and it's going to hit the press, and then it's going to hit the news, right, that there's this guy that's been doing this shit, right, hypothetically, allegedly, right, and then once that hits the press and hits the news, then that hits the average person on the street. YouTube has a lot of pull, but it only has a certain amount of pull. I was speaking to a guy just recently, actually today, and he said he tried to bring the whole Dicky shit onto Twitter, and he was banned within a couple of days because he wasn't allowed to talk about certain terms. Now, this is what the problem is, right? Is that there's people out there, right, actually back this shit, knowing what the truth is. And this is what the problem is. They think that he's 100% in his well and his right to treat people like this here. I'm not going to talk about certain groups of people, but I've seen them. I've seen the support. And another thing people have to realize is, right, that this man gains a lot of support from women. And the reason being, if you look into the whole psychology thing to this here, is that just for an example, why do serial killers why are they able to get married in jail? It's because there's a lot of women attracted to this shit, attracted to the whole great thing, attracted to real.
That makes it scary for me to
Well,
think that.
But for me, if he got with a woman that was into that shit, okay, then maybe they could role play that shit. But the fact is that there's some people out there that like the actual sort of to do this, to actually do it for real. And then I looked into it, right? And if I watched the whole Ron Swanson series, and it was really, really interesting. And forgive me if I'm wrong here, but one of the techniques used by certain rapists, right, is they'll find a woman that's into that shit, right? They'll text her all the shit that they're going to do to them, and then she'll text back, oh no, but it's all role play, right? And then they'll arrange the meet on a Sunday, but then the rapist shows up on a Saturday and does it for real. And then whenever the police look at the phones, they go, well, you've arranged this, and this was all role play. So it gets NFA and thrown out of court, thrown out of court. So there's all these tactics that these people use that even women that are into this shit don't want this. Don't want this to happen to them in real life. So if there's a woman out there and you're texting a guy and you're into the sort of the grapey role play shit, okay, you're consensual adults, but be very careful because there's, in my opinion, a bloke that's into that shit really wants to do that for real.
Yeah, that's true.
That's just my opinion. Men are fucking bastards, man. Men are dirty, rotten pigs. You know, listen. I'm an average bloke. I don't have any fantasies or any thoughts or anything to do with any perversions like that. Um, but we're just dirty pigs. We're just,
Yeah.
but you imagine that dirty pigness multiplied by 1,000, and then you have grape put into that, then you have children put into that. That's a level of evilness that I can't even think about. But these cunts will come up with tactics and ways to get around the whole fucking police and court systems and rule.
Probably the only thing we can look forward to is in January, when he goes up on his driving charge, and
But
hopefully
they get away with it.
hopefully that sinks in that he
Here's
is
one for you.
going to jail.
Now, if he just say, for instance, he gets jail, right? I don't think he will. By the way, I don't think he will. I think he'll get away with it, right? But just say he does. Will he go on the numbers?
I mean, for the people on YouTube that have connections in these prisons, it only takes one phone call, to one inmate, and as soon as he's taken into that jail, he'll go through reception, get signed in, get all his kit back, and then he gets taken onto the wing. Now, from that moment he hits that wing, he's on offer. It's on site. It's going to be the weakest and smallest. If they get to him, he's on offer the minute he walks through that jail door. Now, if it's mentioned between the police, the court officials, and the prison officials, that he is going to be a target, then 9 times out of 10, the chances are he will end up on Ward 43 or end up on the numbers over on the protection wing.
And just for people to understand, when I say the numbers, I mean the numbers is the place.
The numbers is like a protection wing. Like if you're in jail, and if, say, for argument's sake, you've done a deal with someone, and you said, "Oh, give me half ounce of baccy," and then on my canteen day, I'll repay you back X amount, and you don't pay back that debt back to that inmate, then you're simply going to get your head caved in for not paying that debt.
It's also a place for
what they will do, they will put you over on the numbers because it's it's basically for vulnerable prisoners. Sometimes people who have gone to jail for the very, very first time and they don't think that they could handle general population. It's for sex offenders.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And it's for people in that person's situation where his life is going to be threatened from the very first second he walks through that prison door. So it's a collective of people that will be over there. But on saying that, they do sometimes put sex offenders in with general population, hoping that they won't be found out. But the minute that they're found out by the inmates, they get transferred to the Ward 43.
Yeah, but mate, so you're telling me, right? As a normal bloke, I go in, right, and I go in there and I don't pay back a debt, right? I would rather I would rather stand and take the beating than be round a sexual predator on the numbers. So you do have a choice, don't you? Like,
I mean, in that instance, like say for argument's sake, I went in and I went to somebody and said, "Lend me half ounce," and then it come to canteen day, and I didn't repay him back that debt, and then if he then said to a couple of inmates, "Oh, here's a quarter of ounce of baccy, go and smash the hell out of Steve," I will get word of that, right? I will go to the screw and say, "Look, these guys are threatening me. I am going to have the living shit kicked out of me. It's all over a debt. I grass on them, the two people that are going to come and sort me out. and the person that I loaned the baccy off, that prison officer then would take it up with whoever, I think the governor or whatnot, and then they make a decision and say, well, if you don't feel safe over here because you've grasped on this guy now, we're going to have to go and put you over onto the vulnerable prisoners wing. That's how that would probably work in that scenario.
But because Dicky is so high level, he'll be going into jail straight away. And will he have the choice? Hypothetically speaking, if he does go, right? If he does go in, will he have the choice to go on the numbers or stay in general population?
They would probably advise him. If they've heard all about this.
So it's not forced. It's not forced.
He won't be forced, but they will basically say to him that we advise you best to go over away from general population, because
If I was an innocent
you'll
bloke,
have a hard sentence basically.
if I was an innocent bloke, and that was a whole trolling campaign, right? I'm not. I'm just going. I'm just going to say to you how I feel. If I was an innocent bloke in that situation, I would rather go into general population, die, and for it to come out that I'm innocent, than go in there and go into the numbers. Because for me,
But I think you're more at risk if you look at it from this point of view. If you've got to do say you get 3 year sentence and you do half of that, a year and a half. Now, I would rather be in general population every time, regardless, right? You go over to the vulnerable prisoners section with the numbers, Ward 43. Surely you're going to be more at risk over there from an attack of a sex offender. Surely.
What do you mean, being raped yourself?
If you're padded, chances are 9 times out of 10 you're going to be padded up with a sex case on that vulnerable wing. Surely.
You mean there's a risk that you could be raped?
Oh, I reckon it's got to be. I'd feel more vulnerable on the vulnerable prisoners wing. Now, if you got padded up with somebody and you didn't know they were a sex case, how do you know they're not putting drugs in your cups of tea when you turn your back? You're drinking that, and then that night they're raping you. So that's what I'm saying to you. You're more vulnerable on the vulnerable protection wing, because I'd rather face anyone in population than to put my own arse at risk being in amongst the sex offenders.
Literally put your own arse at risk.
Because the problem being, another thing, if you go on the numbers, right? Let's say he went on the numbers, right, for his own protection, and he's finished his sentence, right, and then 2 years down the line he commits a burglary. When he goes in jail for that sentence of burglary, he's automatically put on the numbers. That's what I understand. So once you've been on the numbers, when you do another sentence, you automatically go onto the numbers. Don't mark my words on that, but I'm sure that's how it was about 15, 20 years ago. I don't know if that's the true case now. It might still well stand. If you've been on the numbers once, when you go back through the system, it will show up on their systems that you've been on the numbers. And I'm sure you'll automatically go straight over onto the numbers. Don't mark me on that, but I know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Listen, what we'll do is now we'll just move into the podcast to do with the Telford grooming gangs. Yeah, TR and Tommy Robinson and stuff. We could talk about that for 5 hours, but we'll have different chats about it like this here, away from all this bollocks on YouTube.